Two questions. First, to follow up on the fingerprinting process. To get the specifics, suppose a trooper pulls over a car for a minor traffic violation on 95. The driver and the passenger are unable to present a proper license. What are the next steps that happen if these people end up getting into getting their fingerprints taken? And
I'm glad you asked that, because we went through it. If you're, that's probably one of the biggest concerns. So you're stopped on Route 95 for, like you said, a traffic violation. If you're the operator of the vehicle, you have to identify yourself to us. You have to show you have an active license and so forth. If the operator of the vehicle gives us a name that he or she is going by, we must check that name to confirm you have an active license. It's not to check anything else at that point. If we check that name and no license comes back, well, then you're stepping into the zone of obstructing because you're not giving us a name that we can verify or it's a false name. That would bring criminal charges. You understand what I'm saying? So say you didn't have your license on you and you gave me a little name, John Doe, I run John Doe, you have a license. Okay, here's your ticket. That's it. You don't get run through NCIC or BCI. It's just a license check to verify who you are. With that license check will come a social security number, which I would ask you, and give you a social security number to verify that you are indeed who you say you are. But as it progresses, if we can't identify you, then the trooper on the road is going to suspect that there's some kind of obstruction going on because you keep giving different names, which we run into occasionally.
But, I mean, if I give my real name, I don't have a social security number because I'm an undocumented immigrant.
Mm-hmm. And you have an active license.
No.
No, you don't have an active license.
No.
No, you would be issued a violation.
You'd be issued a violation.
The car would be towed. You'd have to go to court on the violation. So I prosecute all these in court. I run into that all the time. And what we do is we try to give people opportunities to get their license before they find them. But it's a fine now. A suspended license or a license or no license at all, it's just a violation now. It used to be a misdemeanor or it was years.
Well, what happens so the car is towed? Is the person taking the state police headquarters?
No, it's a traffic sentence.
Just like a speeding ticket.
If the car is towed, what?
Well, they can't drive the car.
You can't drive the car, so.
Say they have a license operator with them.
Yeah.
We turn it over to that license operator, but not if they're by themselves, the car would be towed.
And we just talked about this upstairs. I think you're probably going to get to the point of you don't have a license on you, and you may have a warrant, an order for deportation in that, and you're the operator of that vehicle. Will be taken into custody. No, we would not, because we don't have criminal charges on you. We just have a traffic violation. That's probably the biggest question we get. I'm glad you asked that because that's a good scenario. You don't have a license. You're undocumented. You don't have a social security number, so you don't have a license. So it shows up when we run your name. It shows up you have an order of deportation. There's so many names for it. You used to be called detainers. Will we take him into custody? No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't. We would issue the traffic summons. Of course, immigration is going to be made aware of the fact that we have you stopped, and they will probably call up and say, well, we did have him stopped. He or she stopped. Here's the result of that. Do you have the headquarters? No, we don't.
How would immigration be told?
Because if we run the name looking for a license, and we can't find a license, can't find anything, we have to know who we're dealing with for public safety. Unfortunately, on the side of the road, it's a very dangerous spot. We have to know who we're doing. Now, this is just operator-wise. The operator must identify them. So you can ask the passengers for an ID. They really don't have to produce one. Most people do, but you don't have to produce one. But you have to know who you're dealing with for public safety.
So it's not just the fingerprints. It's just
Yeah, if you run someone.
running somebody will alert ICE.
It depends on how you run them. Like a license check will not. A BCI and NCIC, III, these other, they will bring it up.
BCI and would you?
NCIC is the National Crime Information Center. That will bring up anything. BCI is a state, like a state Rhode Island BCI.
When you have a person on pulling somebody over, how do they determine what level of notification is warranted? Because I think what a lot of us fear, and we want to go by the good graces of those that are wearing the badges, but we do fear that somebody might be pulled over because they happen to not be the right skin, they happen to not be the right whatever, that sort of creates that mental alert. Oh, this is a potential immigrant, and the immigrant might be somebody that shouldn't be here. And so there's this nether world of what can we assume is the nature of that crime that is going to alert people, and, you know, that a lot of other people might not find themselves in this net.
That's not how we operate.
Well, I want to, that's
And
why
we
I
just
want
want to make clear that that's not how we operate as an organization. And what the colonel was talking about is when we actually have a violation. And then it may be taken to another step, but what you're talking about, that's not how we operate as an organization.
You'll see it in several of our policies that our troopers do not partake in bias-based policing. We do not do that.
It's in this policy.
It's in this policy, right in this one, but it's in several of our policies, so the captain's right, we do not.
But
do not
again,
operate that
all right,
way.
let's go back to what you did say, which was originally it was just the fingerprinting, but then it was the levels of notification, some of which can be in the ICE network.
Correct.
And it seems to me it's up to an individual who they get in touch with then in other
Right,
words,
but
if it's
even
really
if we-
if it's really a benign occurrence of someone jumped a stop, you know, and
Right, but the way the scenario was given, it was John Doe gets stopped, he doesn't have a driver's license. We check, and he doesn't have a driver's license.
right,
He's going to be issued a violation and sent on his way.
okay,
But if the officer believes that he may not be telling the truth about his name, and I'm not sure exactly what the facts and circumstances around that, but that would maybe bring it up to a different level. So now maybe he would want to do some checks on the name that was given. And if he was given a name that came back through this NCIC computer and it alerted us that there was an immigration detainer, we're not going to do anything anyway because there's no underlying crime
Right.
to arrest him for. So I think what the colonel was saying is we would take that information and make a note of it. I'm not sure where that would go, to be honest with you.
okay, but he would be let go then
He
at
would
that
be, yes.
point.
Yeah, we have checks and balances also, and I want to think that a trooper on the road, when something of this severity comes up, this checks and balances, he's going to report that to a corporal the next, it's probably going to get to the lieutenant colonel or the captain or the colonel itself, because it is such a big thing. That decision wouldn't be made solely by the trooper on the side of the road. But I'm just telling you, if now, in the case of a traffic ticket and an immigration order of deportation comes out, we are not keeping that person for that. They are let go with the traffic ticket. Because there's really no way to verify that that person on that deportation order is that person. You know, we don't have an ID, we don't have a license, so we're not going to hold somebody with such questionable circumstances around it. That's up to immigration to do their job.
However, if a warrant came back, which was a judge-issued warrant, you would then take the person into custody?
No, not under that circumstance.
Well, what kind
An underlying crime.
Well, it's still, you're talking about a federal warrant or like a state warrant for failure to appear?
Right.
Yes, that would be,
Right.
yes,
Oh,
that's a
sure.
crime. It'd be taken, yes.
Yeah, but not an immigration order that
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier.
Not a
Not
detainer,
a
but
detainer.
Not a
you would
detainer.
award a
I mean,
warrant.
so any kind of state warrant from a family court,
Sure.
district court, they would be taken, that's an arrestable offense.
And then the other question, just to follow up, is if you don't take them into custody, do you just leave them on the side of the road?
No, never.
That's a
What
safety
happens-
issue.
what
We do
happens-
public safety. No, absolutely
How
not.
does that
Our
work?
job is to make sure that people are safe, whether they didn't have a license or not. And we make sure we've given many rides home. If they're minors, we've called their parents. We have a responsibility, so absolutely not. No, we would never do that.
And so when you give them a ride home to their address, is that information also entered into the system?
Just the address on the ticket would be in this. If it's a different address, if the address that's given on the summons would be given, is information that someone can get.
If I can just follow
Yeah,
up,
sure.
I'm still trying to understand the situation where the person is pulled over, they give it, because you talked about the need to verify who they are. So this is a person who's undocumented, but does not have an order of removal, has been under the radar, so you really aren't able to confirm who they are. Do you still just give them the ticket and let them go on their way, or does something follow from that?
We have to be able to, there's several things
So
we
when-
can, yeah, so say that the resident is Ulysses Province. Say the person pulled over from Province. We can check interagency. We can check if Province has ever had contact with this person. We can check, and we can go as far as to check, utilities at a house. You say you live at this house, we can check, does that person live there? I see what you're saying, if this, because it does come instances whether you can't identify somebody if they're undocumented. You have to verify who that person is. We can't let somebody, let's put it this way, we can't let an operator of a vehicle go without identifying who they are. It's just public safety, because you don't know who you're dealing with, so we have to identify them.
But the reason we're asking these questions is not because he's undocumented.
No.
Because we're trying to find out who he is.
Who he is.
As far as that license violation. That's the sole purpose of why the questions are